There we go. Turned up mic audio this time. Today I'm going to break down video games. Google definition. This is actually the second definition of video games when you just type it into Google, but I used it because I thought it was better. A type of game existing as and controlled by software, usually run by a video game console or a computer, and played on a video terminal or television screen controlled by paddle, joystick, joypad, mouse, keyboard, or a combination of any of these input devices. That's a good definition. However, the one thing that I would disagree with or add on is the fact that I think I'm no expert on modern video games, but I think that with the advent of virtual reality and new technologies, they're coming up with new ways to control the video games. For example, I don't know if this is a thing yet, but I know that there's eye tracking technology. Maybe there's games that use eye tracking to control your character. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. So I'm basically in this. I'm just gonna break down the best I can do with breaking down video games is the potential pros, the potential cons, and I'm gonna rationalize those as best I can. So I'm gonna start with the potential benefits because it's always good to start with the pros. Video games in moderation and or used correctly can be a good stress release tool. Of course, if you overuse video games, a lot of the time it'll have the opposite effect. But I found a little article. I don't think it's a study; it's an article that cites a study saying that video games with low levels can actually help reduce stress. And I didn't look too much at fact checking it against other sources because I think that's true for the majority of individuals who play video games casually. I think that it can be a good stress relief tool, just like reading a book can be a good stress relief tool. However, it has, as I've said, it can have the opposite effect if you way overuse video games. So anecdotally, me personally, I play at least at this point in my life, I play from 30 to 90 minutes on average of video games per day. Sometimes I play with a friend, and when I play with friends, I just play for one long period, so 60 or 90 minutes. Or if I play by myself and I don't have any friends to play with, I'll play one game at the beginning of the day, one game at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I'll spread it out a little bit, and that has a really good. It's a nice break for me. I find that it's a good way to separate work and to give myself almost a reward at the end of doing a long period of work. And it's good stress relief. I do enjoy it in moderation. And also completely anecdotally, I used to be addicted to video games, and I played competitively for up to 6 to 8 hours per day. This was, I think, the earliest I started doing this was 7th or 8th grade, and the latest that I did it was probably 9th grade, beginning of high school. But I think high school. That's when I kind of quit. And it's kind of weird. So me personally, I didn't notice a significant impact on my mental health. But however, the things that did suffer were my energy levels, my physical health, and my sleep schedule suffered. And of course, I am aware that to a decent extent, physical health has a big impact on mental health. But I really didn't notice myself getting super depressed, anxious, stressed out when I was playing a ridiculous amount of video games. I just enjoyed playing the video games, and I did whatever I did with the rest of my life in the time that I wasn't playing, and I was fine. I wasn't depressed. I was chilling. However, I don't think that's true for the majority of individuals. I'll get into that later. And that's just my experience. Completely anecdote. It's a complete anecdote, not statistically backed at all. So I'm going to get into the potential benefits, past stress relief. So a lot of people don't like to acknowledge this because it's super difficult to do, but you have to acknowledge it because it's there. There are potential monetary benefits to playing video games, and I'll go through the two, at least that I know of. Games. Well, first of all, I should say, I have been seeing specifically Web3 video games that are coming out that advertise that they pay you to play. They'll reward you with crypto with doing quests, or if you win a game, they'll reward you with a little bit of crypto. And I haven't done research into how much crypto you get from these games, but I know just using logic that it's an inefficient way to make money. If you're trying to make money, playing video games in the Web3 video games that pay you crypto to play is not the most efficient way to do it. And the reason I say that is because of basic economics. The video game company would not pay you a decent enough wage to play, because if they did, then they would lose profitability. The video game has to be profitable, and therefore It has to be profitable in order to continue and in order to be a business. And if they're paying people out ridiculous amounts of money, they're going to go bankrupt. They're not going to continue. So that's just not a sustainable business model. That's not how that works. But getting into how you actually can make money from video games, the first thing that I'll go on is professional video games. They're very, very real, and they have been for many years. People have been making a lot of money from professional video games for many years. The top players in many of the most popular video games can make hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars directly from competition prizes. And then additionally, on top of that, a lot of top players I know make money in other ways, like sponsors, promotions, affiliations, all that sort of stuff. And this sounds good, but there's a catch. And the catch is, just like professional sports, only the very highest tier of competitors make it to the professional level and are able to make a living by playing the video game of their choice. Just like professional sports, there are millions of people that try to get there, and and specifically in video games, they may spend thousands of hours playing video games, thousands, up to maybe even tens of thousands of hours, I don't know, playing video games in hopes of going pro, but they very rarely make it. And the ones that don't make it, it ends up being that if they were trying to go pro, they ended up just wasting a lot of time. And they could have been making money some other way. I'm not knocking anyone who's trying to go pro in video games. I'm not gonna knock your dreams. If you think you can do it, and you're talented, and you have a good work ethic, and and all that, I'm not gonna tell you don't try. But I will tell you, if you're realistically not a serious competitor in professional video games, and you have a dream to do so, you have to be realistic. I'll just say that. And then besides, the other way that I know that you can make money from video games is make good money from video games is that you can be a content creator, which is essentially making online video games or making online videos about the game for thousands to watch. And the way that this is profitable is that you make money by collecting a portion of ad revenue, typically from the platform that you put the content on. So, like, for example, YouTube. If you make videos on YouTube as a content creator, YouTube will give you a portion of the ad revenue that they make when advertisers put their ads in front of your videos. Additionally, another thing is, like, I know people stream video games on Twitch and they make a lot of money just from direct donations. That's another thing. And additionally, also, content creators, Twitch streamers, whatever it is, people who make videos, people who stream, whatever, they can also collect sponsorships, promotions, affiliations. They can collect money from that sort of stuff, just like pro players, which is essentially just another form of advertisement. So those are the pros from video games: stress relief, possible economic gain. Now I'm gonna go to the potential detriments. Dude, got it. You see this? This is what happens to all the bugs out there. This is what happens if you come in my room. This is going to be you. Anyways, potential detriments of video games. Do violent video games cause violent tendencies in real life? I've heard this a lot, and I know it's a lively debate. And it seems to be a very debated topic with different sources offering different results. The hard part is that it's extremely difficult to objectively test or measure this precisely, as it's impossible to control all other possible variables. For instance, if a study shows that people who play violent video games tend to have more violent behavioral tendencies, it's impossible to prove that video games cause this. And I'll tell you why. So, like, for example, an alternative explanation could be that violent individuals are attracted to violent video games. So the video games don't cause the violence, they just attract violent people, and therefore there would be a higher statistic, a higher number of violent people who play violent video games. There could be a correlation there, but correlation does not equal causation. It's pretty impossible to prove. And it could even be argued that video games actually have the opposite effect of making kids more violent. Video games have the opposite effect of making kids more violent, because it allows them to release their violent emotions and or anger in a healthy way and not release it on people in the real world. Since 1996, youth violence has decreased, while the prevalence of violent video games among youth has skyrocketed. Of course, I'm going to put these citations in the description so you can fact check me. I got that from a Harvard article. Whatever, check it out, read it. And it's probably better, even if you do have an opinion, do violent video games cause violence one way or the other, it's probably better just to take it on a case-by-case basis like I say with everything, it's probably better to take it on a case-by-case basis rather than generalize. For example, if you have a violent child who plays violent, or not even a child, if there's a violent person who plays violent video games, it might be a good idea to try to limit access to those violent video games, and see if it helps the person's violent tendencies. If it doesn't, then you just got a violent person. But maybe it does help with reducing their violent tendencies. I don't know. Try it out. Take it on a case-by-case basis. If you have a child who plays violent video games but is in no way violent, they're a great person, whatever, there seems to be no need, no correlation, no need to limit access to violent video games in that case, if it doesn't seem to have any negative effects. So moving past do violent video games cause real-world violence, another point that I had is, another question I had was, does overuse of video games cause mental health issues? I didn't even need to look this one up and come up with stats to back this. From what I know about human mental health and psychology, an overuse of video games cannot be good for mental health. Of course, there are exceptions. I'm not going to generalize, but for the majority of individuals, I think it's fair to say that of an extreme overuse, an excessive use of video games cannot be good for mental health. And one or a few reasons why is because if you're overusing video games, if you're playing video games for 8 hours a day, that's time that you're not exercising, that's time that you're not socializing with people in real life, and that's time that you're not getting exposed to sunlight in the outdoors. All three of those things are things that improve mental health. So essentially, just excessive video games would limit these variables drastically, and as well as there's a ton of ways that this could happen. Like one instance is that I know that exposure to, I don't know if it's blue light, whatever, but basically looking at a screen isn't good for your sleep. It's not good for your eyes, which can have detriments on your mental health. And the last point I have, the last detriment to video games that I could possibly think of, is that excessive use of video games is just a waste of time. Sorry if that's blunt, sorry if you don't like to hear that, but if you're not making money from video games and you're playing 8 hours a day, you're wasting time. You're wasting your life. Every second you spend playing video games in excess, that's 1 second that you're losing to potentially improve yourself. Long story short. So in conclusion, I just like to say that all of these are generalities and they don't apply to every single individual. As I mentioned before, I personally didn't notice many, if any, mental health detriments when I played 6 to 8 hours of video games a day. But for the majority of individuals, it cannot be good. So I'll summarize the pros and the cons real quick to end it off. The pros: video games can be a useful stress relief tool in moderation, and video games at the highest level of competition or as a content creator can be a very, very lucrative source of income. However, that's for a very small percentage of people who play video games are able to capitalize on that. The cons to video games: violent video games may not, I don't know, cause violent tendencies in certain individuals. It's a waste of time if you're playing video games 6 to 8 hours a day and you're not making any money from it. Even if you are enjoying it, in my opinion, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life. And additionally, video games in excess can lead to mental health issues. So like always, there's a couple stats and a couple statistics that I mentioned, a couple objective things I mentioned in this video, so I'll put them down in the description. And if anyone has any counterpoints, agrees with me, wants to talk it out, put a comment in the description. Tell me your thoughts. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.